Hi there, listener, and welcome to this ski podcast special. This is an interview with Joe Ponte, CEO at Hotelplan, and they're the company who own Inghams, Esprit holidays, Flexiski and Ski Total. We talk about his difficult first season, having started in November of 2020, optimism bias. We talk about record early bookings for next season, and also the future of the chalet holiday. I really enjoyed speaking to Joe, and I think you'll enjoy this interview too. Hi there, Joe. How are you today?
I'm great, Ian. It's great to be here.
Okay, well, great to have you on the show. Obviously, kind of unusual times. So it'd be great to interview in a season when we're selling loads and loads of holidays. But before we move on to Inghams and Hotelplan specifically, I wanted to kind of get a bit of a background. I know you started with Hotelplan back in the autumn, but can you give us a bit of background as to where you're working, or who you're working for prior to that?
Absolutely. So I've actually been working with the Hotelplan Group for the last almost 3 years. So prior to this job, I was the managing director of adventure travel company Explore Worldwide that sits as a part of the Hotelplan Group. And I've worked in the travel industry since my first job in 1999 as a travel agent. Worked from tourism bodies to tour operators, travel agency groups. So I've got pretty wide experience across the industry, both in my native Australia and now here in the UK.
Yeah, and interestingly, I did do a bit of research. I knew some of that already, and I saw that you were marketing manager, I think, for flight centres in Australia.
Correct. I ran the marketing function for Australia for Flight Centre for about 5 years, back in the early 2000s, actually.
Well, here's something that might surprise you. I actually worked for flight centres myself in Brisbane when I lived there in the early 90s, when, they were a big company by
Yes.
then already, but they were still growing and growing fast. And, I really enjoyed my time there, and I felt that it gave me the training they gave was amazing. It really helped my sales skills in particular, and great place to get a background in the travel industry, in my opinion.
It really is. It's absolutely where I got my start. I went from being a travel consultant to be running marketing for the Australian business within 3 years. So they really give you an opportunity to do well. So I had a great time working at Flight Centre. It really set off my career, I must say.
So you moved over to the UK. You're working for Explore, which I think probably listeners might be familiar with, but they're adventure holidays. That's also within the Hotelplan Group. And in November 2020, you were promoted to the CEO position at Hotelplan. Now, at that stage, it looked like we might have a relatively normal ski season. But sadly, within a few weeks, we saw the UK go into that second lockdown and the Kent variant emerged. I guess you probably weren't expecting this for your first season in charge.
Oh, I don't know about that, Ian. I mean, I had to make the decision on those first cancellations on my second day in the job, and
Right.
So it was a pretty interesting initiation into the role. But what I learned at my time as Explore dealt with the crisis. They did all the Hotelplan Group businesses, dealt with it excellently. And what I've learned through that period is that when you're in a leadership role in any of these travel companies at the moment, it's easy to have optimism bias. You want things to go well. You want to get trips away. I want to be able to tell my bosses that we're taking people on holiday, but you've got to balance that with realism. So I kind of do my best to hope and plan for the best, but be prepared for the worst case scenario. And I've got to say, at October into November, it was becoming pretty obvious that those early ski departures were not going to get away. Going into the Christmas period, I was actually feeling reasonably optimistic that we'd get the second half of the season away. The infection rates had come down, but then we got hit with these variations of the virus. And from when I finished up on about the 18th of December to when I came back early January, the world had changed completely, and it was becoming pretty obvious from January that we were really going to struggle to get any of the season away, which is absolutely gutting. We're a business chock full of skiers. Everyone on my leadership team would have been on that first departure out to go skiing, but we all just wanted to get our customers away as well, but it was not to be this season.
Evidently, it's very frustrating, and I find it interesting there you refer to optimism bias. I think I probably suffered from that a little bit back in the autumn. Through the podcast, we discussed at regular points, when might we get to go skiing, and then it moved from when we might get to go skiing to if we might get to go skiing. And as it goes, I was extremely lucky. I managed to get out in that small window to Switzerland when there was no quarantine period in place. But that didn't last very long, and unfortunately, I think You obviously referred that you said you weren't going to operate any holidays until the end of February, and then it was the end of March. And I think a couple of days ago, Hotelplan confirmed that they weren't going to be operating any holidays at all for this winter, and that's a pretty big call to make. How do you come around to making those decisions?
Yeah. We approach it pretty methodically. So every Tuesday, I have a COVID response meeting with product operations, communications, and our customer service team, where we just review all the information that we have. We have we put in place a really structured program where we shortened all balance of payments to 4 weeks, just to give us as much time as possible to get a trip away. But before we asked people for money, I didn't want to be asking people for money to then have to be refunding them for 4 weeks later. So we pushed it to 4 weeks, and at the beginning of each month, we would make the call for the following month. So at the end of January, that's when we made the decision for March. Now, coming in towards the end of February, it's just become blatantly obvious that we're not going to get anything away. You know, we have Boris's big announcement on the 22nd, and it's hard to determine exactly what he's going to be talking about in the roadmap to coming out of lockdown. But there is some talk that pubs might not even be open till May. So that, just for us, it just made it blatantly obvious that there's no way we're going to get any departures away, and we had to make that really regrettable decision to cancel the season. It's just unbelievable, even just to say it, that the season's been cancelled. But we're just now doing our best to focus on making next season the best season we've ever had.
I mean, I totally understand where you're coming from, and we still have a holiday booked notionally for Easter. But, I know that isn't going to happen. I've been rating the chances at 0 to 5%. But I'm sure you're aware there's a lobbying group within the travel industry out there at the moment called Save Our Summer.
Yep.
And Save Our Summer is giving a message to government saying, well, based on the number of vaccinations and the number of people who have had their first and second jabs, etc., and the infection rate, they're lobbying for a start to international travel for the 1st of May. So evidently skiing, and that's the travel industry suggesting that the 1st of May might be a good day to start again. So clearly that ski season, is not going to happen. I mean, there are some very encouraging signs, though, I feel, just within this week in relation to travel being, let's say, smooth and borders opening up in relation to vaccination passports, etc. The deal between Greece, Cyprus and Israel. And then I read in the paper today that Spain have started negotiations or started to discuss with the UK government about some kind of vaccination protocol. So all of those things are much more encouraging for next year.
Absolutely.
And there's been a lot of talk about how 2021 to 22, i.e. next season, bookings are looking strong. Can you give me any more insight into that?
Yes, absolutely. So of the people that we've been cancelling out of this season, 60% immediately are booking into the next season, which is fantastic. But we're also getting a huge number of new bookings into next season. Right now, we are 100% up on where we ordinarily would be in bookings for next winter. It's incredible. And so once those normal booking curves return, I think it's going to be an absolutely bumper season. Right now, we're booking between 1,500 and 2,000 passengers into our total winter program next year. And that's unheard of for this time of year. That's including our Sanders Lapland program up in Norway and all of our ski product. So yeah, we're really excited. A few dates here and there are starting to look a bit tricky. So this is not me being the sales guy, but if I am going to be booking my trip very soon, because if you're after a specific resort, specific dates, or a specific hotel, things are starting to get pretty full already.
I have seen and heard that message, and I have access to a bit of analytics and sales data as well for various clients that I work with. It's not just talk, for sure. I think in those peak dates, one of the limiters is always going to be the number of, for example, charter flights that get packaged up. So I'm presuming that's the sort of date you're talking about where availability is looking a little tighter, that kind of half-term, mid-February time.
Absolutely, it certainly is, and particularly on so we've got our charter flights sorted, and they are filling up quickly. We monitor every single flight on a weekly basis, and some of them are getting into that sort of red zone where there's not too much availability left.
And what is interesting is that although the pandemic has evidently affected a lot of people's livelihoods, we have seen data that says that people from the higher income groups have been less affected. They've increased their savings. There's a lot of pent up demand there for holidays, and I think that's probably what you're seeing coming through there. People want to have something to look forward to. You mentioned optimism. People want to have these things in the calendar, and for a lot of people will have missed 2 seasons of skiing, because if their normal time for going skiing is, let's say, Easter, because half term is pretty expensive, then that's 2 Easters in a row gone. So
Yes.
it makes sense that people would do those bookings. What I find really encouraging is you're saying, okay, you've carried over 60% of bookings, but if you're up 100% year on year, then that's a lot of other people who
Absolutely.
are booking that much further in advance, which is really good.
And look, our own internal research, it really endorses the things that you're saying. Our majority of our customers are over 40, and they have a higher disposable income, and they are really looking to travel. They want to travel, and they want to have this ski trip to look forward to. What I'm learning most about skiers is that skiers absolutely love to ski. And so for the people in my team who've had 2 years without skiing, for them, that's absolutely devastating. So we will see them come back, and they're coming back really strong. And what we're also seeing is that a number of people are booking 2 trips. So one early in the season and one late in the season, just trying to make up for those lost seasons and just to make sure they're not rusty for that second trip.
Yeah, well, purely anecdotally, I can say to you that we've had that discussion in our household as well. We often, because I kind of work in the industry, we have been able to go skiing a couple of times in a few seasons. But for next year, we're definitely looking at 2 trips.
You won't be the only one.
That maybe early, high resort pre-Christmas or even Christmas kind of trip, plus an Easter one as well. Tell me, Joe, are you a skier as well?
I'm becoming a skier. So as a young man, I did a season in Colorado and snowboarded for 3 months straight. And then I had most of my life and career in warmer climates, not too much access to ski fields. But since I've been in Europe, and particularly part of the Hotelplan group, I've been a number of times and loved it. My 3 sons have been on their school ski trip twice, and we're going to go on our first family ski trip this coming winter. Probably looking at Obergurgl is the one we're probably aiming for.
Great, excellent. Well, that's it. I can tell you that Obergurgl would be an excellent choice. As an aside, it happens to be where my parents met, in Obergurgl.
Is that right?
So,
you are a mountain man, aren't you?
for sure, that's right. I've been involved in it for many years, and that's why it kind of burns me up not to be able to
I'm sure
get out there as much. But that's what listeners to the podcast are like that as well. So just thinking about next winter, hopefully vaccines, infection rates going down, but just on the off chance that there are any problems for next year, are there assurances in place for skiers who are making their bookings early?
Well, before I get on to that, and yes, there definitely are. Regarding what the next ski season is going to be like, I'd love my optimism bias to be right, and it's just going to be 100% back to normal. The virus is a thing of the past, but the reality is the COVID virus is going to be with us for some time. And I think what we're going to see is operators like ourselves, working really closely with resorts, will be doing their very best to create a safe environment as possible. And I was talking to a fellow, Alex, who's the head of Swiss tourism here in the UK, and he was talking about the fact that the Swiss ski resorts, they're all operating now for Swiss nationals. So they're getting a lot of training in about safety on the ski. They've got COVID angels who make sure people are standing apart from each other as they're queuing for the gondolas. And they're really learning how to create a safer environment. And I think that's what people should be looking for and looking towards. Is the ski season will get away. I feel there's no doubt about that next season, but it will be probably a slightly different experience, and everyone should be willing to embrace that, because the most important thing is getting up to the mountains. In reference to your question about refunds and should the worst happen and the season be cancelled again, we'll do exactly what we did last time around, which is give people 3 options. You can rebook, you can take a credit note, or you can get a 100% refund. That's our responsibility and requirement as a part of the travel package regulations, to refund if we have to cancel, and we take that very seriously.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. And interesting to hear you talk about Alex from Switzerland Tourism as well. So I did actually get out to Crans-Montana in Switzerland in December, and I've covered, what's been going on in Switzerland. We have a reporter out there, Charlie, who's been out to a whole bunch of different resorts, and all of those measures. I felt completely safe when I was in Crans-Montana. I mean, it was relatively low season, so there weren't that many people in resort. But the social distancing is marked in all of the queues, and there was mask wearing. There was reduced occupancy in the cable cars and the gondolas, and those are lessons they have shown in Switzerland that it's entirely feasible to employ all of those protocols and keep skiing safe. So my optimism bias again, but I'm very positive about next season.
I'm with you on that one, Ian.
There will be some changes, though, I think, for next season. And COVID is clearly the number one issue the travel industry has had to deal with. We haven't even mentioned what used to be referred to as the elephant in the room, which is Brexit.
Oh.
Now, I'm aware that Hotelplan, is restructuring. There's been an office move. It's been difficult times. There've been some job cuts as well. But chalets were cut out of the program very early on, possibly in your first week. I don't know if the decision had been made before then. Is that are we going to see chalets again within the Hotelplan product? And how much is Brexit a part of that?
Yeah, Brexit. I joke from time to time that I long for the days when Brexit was the biggest issue I was dealing with. But yeah, obviously Brexit has a significant impact on us as a business. We have a separate working group within our business. It's 4 individuals accountable to our CFO to make sure that we are addressing all of the regulatory issues, the taxation issues, the labour issues. So it's not just about the labour. There's a whole myriad of issues, obviously, that brings up, and I feel that we're well ahead of them and planning well for them. Talking about short-term labour and its impact on our chalet program specifically, it has a significant impact because the chalet model traditionally has been built on British people, as you know, working a season in our chalets. We've reduced the chalet program significantly because what we want to do is make sure that we can create something that customers want and that is financially viable for us. So we're going to have around 30 odd chalets this year. I think it's 32. And then we'll be looking, okay, well, what are our alternatives to staffing them? We need to be able to find either Brits with European passports or EU passports or European citizens. I don't think that a British skier will be that concerned if they want that chalet experience, if it's going to be staffed by a British person or a French person. So we're looking at all those different labour options, but we're also having a really tight look at the chalet model in itself. Chalet model, I think, has traditionally sort of been appealing to people booking short term, booking late, getting a really cheap deal to go skiing. That's not going to be viable for us in the long term. We need to reimagine and rethink what that chalet offering is going to be to make it much more attractive, that people want to book that early, and make sure that we provide an offering and a service proposition that meets their needs and people are willing to pay for because it's something that exceeds what they can get elsewhere. The major part of our program next year will certainly be in those hotels, but I'm confident that with the right planning and the right innovation, we can create a chalet program that is something that in the future we can grow. But we'll see if it works, and we'll make the decision at the end of next season.
Okay, well, that's very encouraging that chalets are going to be back. And I say it's encouraging. I say that on the kind of assumption that British skiers do like that chalet holiday concept.
Yeah.
Maybe in a kind of post-COVID or new normal, they might think differently about it. That clearly the evident challenge is the employing your staff and how you deal with staffing. Is the idea that there could possibly be an exemption for British staffing chalets? Is that a possibility? Because my understanding is you could advertise that job in the UK. It has to be for like a minimum of 8 weeks or something, and if no one applies for it, then you could say, well, actually this job is exempt and we can employ people from the UK.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that particular point. So we are a member of Esprit, the Seasonal Businesses in Travel, a lobbying group who've been lobbying both here and also in Europe, and they've been doing a fantastic job of doing so. I'm not holding my breath for any particular labour deal to support seasonal workers. I do not think that that's going to be high on the agenda of the UK side Brexit negotiators. They're a big driver towards Brexit was being able to take control of our own immigration. So then to have to do a deal on even work-based immigration, I think it seems counterintuitive to the reasons that Brexit began. So I'm not holding my breath. I think we will have to look for options to staff all staff that we need, not just in the chalets, our reps that we have. It will have to be local. And look, I think that's a real opportunity for us. It's been fantastic having young Brits working in the resorts, but there's also an opportunity for us to look for local people with a deeper local knowledge of not just the mountains, but the towns and the restaurants. So when you're over there, you've got almost like a concierge that you can call and say, which table should I book in this particular restaurant, or which run should I head down for this particular challenge? I think there's something really rich that we can unlock there and use this force change as a reason to innovate and come up with something new.
I know Esprit and Charlie Owen from Esprit has been on the show before, and he's doing an excellent job in terms of lobbying to government, etc. So I hope that will work. I agree with you. I don't think there's any particular reason that British guests need to have British staff, and those jobs can easily be done by any EU citizens. So let's see how that goes. Certainly we know that chalets are going to be on the cards for next year. Things as they stand look very positive for next year, that bookings are up, so it's great to end on a positive side of things. Let's hope those strong bookings continue. Joe, thank you very much for giving us your time today, and I wish you all the best for next winter, and hopefully we'll see you on the slope somewhere.
Hopefully so. It's been a pleasure, Ian. Thank you very much.
Hi there, listener. Iain here. I just wanted to let you know that you can now support the Ski Podcast at buymeacoffee.com. Researching, recording, editing and publishing the pod takes up a lot of my time. And don't get me wrong, I really enjoy it. I love talking with people about skiing. But if you do enjoy listening to the podcast and you'd like to support us, then you can literally buy me a coffee, or in my case it would be a cup of tea, but the idea is the same. So just go to buymeacoffee.com/the Ski Podcast. Thanks very much.